Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Andrew Jackson's presidency and whether we should see it as a tragedy, a triumph, or something more ironic, and each of those individual aspects as they pertain to Andrew Jackson's presidency. There's a little bit of each. Let's start with a triumph, or the triumphs in Andrew Jackson's presidency. Many people saw Jackson as a hero, and still do to this day. He was the first president who wasn't from a rich family. He grew up poor and worked hard to become successful. He was also a war hero. When he became president in 1829, many everyday Americans felt like one of their own had finally made it to the White House. He gave more power to the people and stood up to big banks, which he thought were helping only the rich. So you can see there, he has elements of what makes America such a great place in his person. You know, that's somebody you want as a president that represents American values. You can see that he had taken advantage of the American dream and went from nothing to being the president. His achievements in the war were impressive and showed that he wasn't afraid to fight for his country and what they believe in. So those are all big positives for Andrew Jackson. But some tragic elements as well, which we'll get here to. The tragedy. One of the most painful parts of Jackson's time as president was the Indian Removal Act. He forced thousands of Native Americans off their land. This led to the Trail of Tears, where many people died while being forced to move far away from their homes. It was terrible and unfair part of American history. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the main tribes, I believe, is partially or maybe completely located in North Carolina, being the Cherokee tribe. Trail of Tears was a long and grueling process, you could say. Wasn't a lot of food, water, things you would need to travel that kind of distance. Those kinds of things weren't taken care of, and they weren't cared for in those essential ways. This led to a lot of deaths, and I couldn't imagine being booted off where I've lived my whole life and having to start from the beginning all over again, especially when America is already such an unfair place for you because you're Native American. So that was not a good decision on his part, and it is a very regrettable time in American history. And they're still affected by it to this day in reservations that they live in. They're given some kind of, compensation for what their ancestors went through, but it isn't really fair compared to the suffering they went through during that time. And the land that they were booted to is not very good real estate from farming, economical perspectives, but they've made the best of it with what they were given, which is admirable at least. Yeah, regrettable time during Andrew Jackson's presidency, that was. And getting onto the more ironic elements of Andrew Jackson's presidency that I spoke about is Jackson said he was a man of the people. Seemed like a very American president, and in some ways he was. But at the same time, he made choices that hurt many people, Americans, especially Native Americans and Black Americans. He claimed to support democracy, but he used his power in strong and sometimes harmful ways. That's the big irony. He said he was protecting freedom, but not everyone got to share in that freedom. So Is Jackson's presidency a tragedy, a triumph, or overall ironic? Honestly, it's all three. It was a triumph for many white Americans, a tragedy for Native Americans, and an irony because the man who spoke so much about liberty didn't protect it for everyone. The Americans, even the ones that were here before the colonists, weren't protected. So that's something to think about. Thank you.